Welcome to this inaugural Ellucian Academic Services podcast. My name is Sam Backer, and I am the Senior Manager of Academic Services at Ellucian. I lead a team of learning experience designers, and we support colleges and universities with online course and program design and development, providing faculty professional development, learning, management system administration, and strategic planning related to administering online programs. Ellucian Academic Services had the opportunity to present 9 sessions at Ellucian Live 2025 in April of this year. Ellucian Live provides a platform for participants to deepen their understanding of Ellucian products, build and strengthen partnerships, connect with peers from around the globe, learn about industry trends, best practices, and innovative solutions, gain insights into the future of higher education technology. Ellucian Live 2025 brought together thousands of institutional leaders, technologists, and administrators across the global higher education community to celebrate the magic of innovation. Featured main stage speakers included Deion Sanders, Maurice Conti, Paul LeBlanc, and Cheryl Lee Ralph. During this podcast, I wanted to highlight the key moments from our presentations and give you a small glimpse into what happened at Ellucian Live for us this year. Over the next several minutes, you'll hear from my colleagues and one of our customers. Enjoy. I'm here with Mary McHenry, the Senior Director, Innovative Teaching and Learning at Naropa University. She and I presented together at Ellucian Live on how moving online strengthened a small private university. So Mary, do you mind briefly introducing yourself?
Sure, happy to. Good to be here with you. As Sam said, I'm the Senior Director of Innovative Teaching and Learning at Naropa University, and I also have been coordinating a 5-year Title III grant at the university there and head up the Educational Technologies team.
Awesome. Thank you. So how has the partnership with Ellucian transformed online learning at Naropa?
Well, it's kind of a wild story, really, because we had worked on a Title III grant with the help of Ellucian, and so we were familiar with the team's work in that way. We were taking, getting some systems from Ellucian, and grant services was in there, and
Yep.
decided to go for this Title III grant. And I believe that was maybe 2018 we started that work.
With the grant, yeah.
Yep. So it took a while to write, and the resulting grant was not at first accepted. And then the Department of Education came back to us and said, actually, the person we had, or the school we'd given it to, can't do it, and we'd like to go ahead and award this to you. And they awarded it to us right at the beginning of the pandemic, and right when we had just implemented Canvas LMS
Mhm.
as well. So there was a lot of big changes.
Yep.
And when we were thinking about staffing the grant, which was outlined in the grant itself, one of our, I think it was our chief operations officer, said, maybe we should just use an Ellucian team. And
Yep.
it seemed like a great idea because there was all this experience that you all brought to the table
Yeah.
in building things out, and instructional design, and just process and best practices and so forth. And we were, like I said, a lot of things were going on. The school was
Yeah.
to, deal with a new LMS, which was quite a big change for the faculty and staff. And so we did. We started the grant together, and we're still working on the grant together. And boy, I think the grant, it was the title of it was Leveraging Technology for Student Success. The focus was on building at least one fully online asynchronous undergraduate major,
Yep.
because the undergraduate part of the school was, it was just not thriving.
Yeah.
And it was always part of the conversation of, should we just be, we have a very thriving graduate set of programs in counseling and, licensure for, very robust graduate
Yeah.
style. So, there was talk about just cutting um, the undergraduate completely.
Mm.
So when you ask that question, like, how has it transformed? I think the work that we've done, I mean, we can talk about the success of it, but the approach to it, um, it was a sort of a like, hey, let's give this a try and see if we can save an undergraduate program at this
Yeah.
university. And we've been able to do that, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some of the things I have been amazing so far with the partnership is not only have we achieved the Title III grants goal of at least one and start putting more on there, but we've scratched at four majors, undergrad majors, and then several
Nine,
minors.
nine minors.
Yeah, nine minors and 55 courses, and now we're at getting close to that 70 mark,
Yeah.
and kicking off our very last cohort is tied to the grant. So it's been really amazing, not only to see those beginning days in March of 21 when we first kicked off that first cohort, and then what we saw in our kickoff just yesterday with this last cohort. It's been really, really cool to see how
Yeah.
much the Naropa faculty have transformed as well. It's been really cool to see.
Yeah. And I think because, Sam, we're at the 4.5 year mark or so,
Hmm.
a 5 year grant. I think what I'm really noticing is how, especially now that we're getting ready to wrap it up, we're looking back at the process so that we can, kind of report on it at the end and um, end it well, right?
Yeah,
Summarize
yeah.
it well and maybe get ready for some other project. But uh, we have come such a long way in so many ways with this project and online learning in the undergraduate realm at Naropa. It's huge because not sure there's content. There's lots of great content, but the growth of the faculty and their creativity and acceptance of this way of teaching, the integration of just ed tech in general at
Hmm.
the school, it's just much more integrated and uh, very much a part of the success of how it's going.
Yeah. What would you say are the key elements of the partnership that contribute to student success, institutional resilience? Because I think I don't remember what point, but there's a point where the residential part and the online enrollments met, and now the enrollments are continuing to grow. And we've seen that the whole institution start to blossom. What would you say are those key elements?
Of the part of our partnership.
Yeah.
I mean, a really good collaboration.
Okay.
Um, Everything that goes into a good collaboration. So a lot of listening, and adapting to one to the other
Yep.
instead of one member of the partnership coming in and saying, well, no, this is the only way we can do this.
Mhm. Yep.
It's more like, well, here's who we are, here's how we do things. Here, let's try this. That didn't work. And just lots of willingness to bring all of that to the table. Um, so a real commitment to the
Mhm.
project and a commitment to the collaboration of the two, you know, businesses, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think we the phrase we used during the presentation at Ellucian Live was bendy, right? That flexibility that we both groups brought to the table, because to your point, we've been doing this a long time, us Ellucian, and we could have said, Naropa, this is the way you do it, and we're not gonna move. And Naropa is a different enough school in the approach that you all take to contemplative education, that the traditional ways, the mechanisms that we've used with our other customers,
Yeah.
they've applied, but we've had to tweak to fit. And I think that's what really helped is that flexibility from both sides to give and take and to come up with a process that is unique to Naropa as Naropa is unique. Um,
Mm.
but then it's been successful because I think of that collaboration, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of our session, we highlighted three things at the end that we encouraged. Like if the question of what if you are struggling, you have an undergrad or a program that's struggling, what 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 made it work? And we said what makes you unique? Don't go it alone and build it excellent. I think maybe you and I can kind of talk back and forth about those three areas and kind of highlight that. So what do we mean by what makes you unique?
Well, I think there's this sort of myth out there about putting a program online that it's going to be this sort of technological wonder cash cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like all you do is put your programs online and then here you go, you're on the track.
Yeah.
But actually I think the exciting thing about this part of what we've been able to explore is that yes, there's this delivery method, which my faculty hate when I say it that way. They're like, we're not doing a delivery method. But anyway, the delivery method itself, but then there's the like the why the students come to your school. You know,
Yeah.
what are you great at? What do you care about? What are you offering? What kind of I mean, because when people go to school, even if it is online, they're looking for some kind of transformation. They're looking for something to shift in their
Yeah.
life. They're moving toward a profession or they're moving toward a master's program or a PhD program or something. They're trying to shift something.
Yeah.
So how do you meaning the school, do that?
Hmm.
I mean, otherwise they could just, Google it and
Yeah.
you know,
And there's so many institutions that already have maybe a traditional English degree or psychology degree.
yeah,
So they are, if this is brand new as a new institution that you're not haven't done anything online before, and you go, we're going to offer English, but that's going to be gobbled up by people who've been doing it, longer than you have, and they're maybe more cost effective or whatever. So I like that. We're trying to grab what makes this institution unique. What are people wanting to do? Um, so that was the key thing is people wanted to come to Naropa, but
yeah,
maybe they couldn't quite afford living in Boulder.
yeah,
So that was one part that we were able to attract that uniqueness of Naropa, but then the contemplative education paired with the psychology. So that there was a lot that Naropa was able to do that really draw new students in. So the second one we said was don't go it alone. And this one I'm going to highlight, that was the partnership that it's not just partnership between Ellucian and Naropa, but then there was internally you all connected with the registrar, with the advising department, with all these different groups. So it wasn't. I think that's what we were trying to say. Is it's not just yes, hire Lucian, which would be great. I'm not going to deny that, but but the intent is saying it's a collaboration not only across your campus, but um, with other individuals that maybe have gone before you and can come alongside you. What do you think?
I do. I think you've hit on something there because it's um maybe other small institutions or large institutions as well know this. We can get siloed
Hmm.
and somebody has a great idea or somebody has a solution for something and you're like, we're just gonna put our heads down and do this and we'll save this program or we'll, have a new stream of income. But if there's not a collaboration across the institution for that, um, it's almost like it's just not fed. It's
Mm,
it doesn't, there's not like nutrition in the system. Like
yeah,
there's just an empty shell in some way. What has
yeah,
made this thrive has been the slow. but eventual real adoption
Yeah.
of having an undergraduate asynchronous contemplative education, um, you know, really a catalog of courses
Yeah.
available and a whole new set of students. And I think that's part of it too. Once the students come in and the people in advising or admissions or, even financial aid, they're all dealing with this kind of a little bit different demographic of students. Some are older, you know, often wanting to move into one of our counseling programs.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's like there's more of a robustness, a party. There's a more part of a party
Yeah.
to come to.
Yeah. And I think the third piece, build it excellent, feeds right into that as well. Is that there were times where we had to build build the train as the tracks as the train was coming, or
Yeah.
the landing gear as we're trying to land the plane, and whatever other mixed up metaphor we want to try to use there. But we could have said at those times, let's just get it done, right,
Yeah.
and get it out there. And I feel like we took a different approach
Mhm.
around building it excellent, where here's the standard, here's our expectation for the faculty, here's the expectation for the Ellucian team that's supporting you all, and the quality assurance that we wanted to do
Yeah.
across that. And I think you even set that tone, Mary, within the education technology team, the ed tech team at Naropa. So is there any more that you'd want to elaborate on that build it excellent?
Um, I'd say that it kind of goes hand in hand with what we just talked about with the, don't go it alone
Yeah.
piece. When we're building this program, we're building the university in its capacity to support it.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think that was I don't think it's like nobody knew that would have to happen. I'm not saying
Yeah.
people are that,
Yeah.
narrow but minded about it, but I feel like I don't think we really realized that there's such a thing as a maturity model for an organization to have a robust online, I keep saying the word robust, but like an online campus that has, strength, that
Yeah.
has roots, that has a capacity to grow, that has a capacity to respond to what's needed. And so, um, not just getting it done, but doing it well along the way and paying attention and being willing to kind of go back. And I'm a seamstress as well. And so I remember when I was learning to sew, I thought I did something wrong. And I'm like, that's it, it's wrong. It's like, no, actually, you can take those stitches out and redo
Hmm.
it. And it
Yeah.
kind of feels like that, like we took the time to say, nope, that's not good enough. That's not going
Yeah.
to fly. That's missing this piece. That's missing, you know, what was most important to this faculty to convey in the way they might have taught this in a residential situation.
Yeah.
So we need to pay more attention to it. And we've done that.
Yeah.
Not in every single instance, but I would say, most of the time.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap up our time together, was there anything else you wanted to highlight from our presentation at Ellucian Live this year?
I think it would be interesting for us as, maybe if we do this again, or what I wish we could have done in our
Hmm.
presentation is bring in more of the statistics of the
Mm.
enrollment, the way that it's impacted the numbers at the university. Um, and yeah, so that would be that. I
Okay.
think that's something important for people to see,
Yeah.
uh, and to see, well, we're a small place, but even the numbers that we've had have made a huge difference to the university, huge difference
Yeah.
at a crucial
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
that early pandemic time when this was starting to take off, part of the reason I think it had so much meaning to it is that a lot of small schools were closing.
Yeah,
So it meant a lot that we found a way to keep afloat.
yeah. And I think kind of as a closing remark, you've also we touched on that maturity model, that growth that we've seen at Naropa, and one of the things we highlighted in our presentation was that because of this growth and this maturity that you've seen, you've now started providing partnerships with other institutions that are struggling to keep their doors open and bringing those students in. And it's really cool to see Naropa being able to support the higher ed community
Mhm.
across the board. And it wasn't just, oh, we saved the undergrad. No, we saved it, grew it, strengthened it, and now it's supporting lots of institutions. Lots. It's supporting more than just Naropa students, right?
Yeah,
And being able to help those students succeed. So
yeah, and that's a whole new area for us.
yeah,
And part of the all those pieces that we named, about excellence and doing it together and all those things. I think what that has done is make it really shareable.
yeah.
We have all these great courses we can adapt. It's almost like we have Lego pieces that we can move around.
Mhm.
And we've been able to support other institutions pretty rapidly in that way because of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, thank you, Mary,
Yep.
for joining me for this inaugural podcast that we're doing around Ellucian Live, and we'll look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Sam.
Yep.
See ya.
Bye. All right. Well, I'm with two of my colleagues who had three presentations at Ellucian Live this year. Can you briefly introduce yourselves, please? Rachel, we'll start with you.
Sure. Hey, my name is Rachael Secovnie. I've been working with Ellucian for about 7 years, and I'm currently a manager on the academic services team. I've been working in higher education for just about 20 years, and my background is in academic operations, organizational development, project management. And most recently, I've been working with institutions to strategically grow their online teaching and learning units.
Awesome. Heidi?
Hi, I'm Heidi Schuler. I am also a manager of academic services and have been working at Ellucian for just shy of 6 years. I have a background in both the academic and the administrative side as a former faculty member, and I currently work with strategic planning, helping institutions align their teaching and learning, and specifically their online learning, to their strategic goals, and then setting up operation and infrastructure to scale and grow that online learning.
Great. So, two of your presentations highlighted the work you both do at Bergen Community College and Washtenaw Community College independently. So, how has Ellucian partnered with these institutions to transform online learning and strengthen their programs?
So I can kick that off and say that our academics team partners with institutions to create the strategic goals that align best with the mission and values of the school. We focus on advancing that teaching and learning capability so that an institution can offer high quality, flexible, and adaptive online learning that can become scalable, accessible, and really meets the needs of today's students. So to help accomplish this, Rachael and I become strategic partners with our institutions. We work with presidents to define strategy for teaching and learning. We then work with academic affairs officers, provosts, vice presidents of instruction to operationalize those strategies. We coordinate with IT to ensure there is a sustainable infrastructure so that online learning can grow and scale. We also work with student affairs leaders to create services that support a fully online learner, someone that may never come to your campus. And we also have a team that specializes in online pedagogy, so we can help support faculty, whether that's adapting to a new learning management system, diversifying or reimagining online pedagogy, or more recently, using data-driven process to engage students and support their success.
And I'll just actually add a little bit to that, Heidi. So, one of the things once we partner with them too is we really figure out what their program management operations is, and we think about it from a perspective of program analysis to start. So, what we're doing is really looking at what online programs institutions currently offer, and then really looking at how we determine what programs would fit in the market demand and transferability for online students. So once we do that, that kind of goes back into what Heidi was saying with the course design and development, where we're working with deans, chairs, and faculty to ensure that quality course in online infrastructure. The data analysis that Heidi was even talking about, we're looking at the student success metrics and then course performance analytics.
As Rachael mentioned, one of the areas that we prioritize in our engagement is really empowering education through learning analytics. So we work with the institutions to personalize student learning. We look at analytics that are student performance data, engagement data, and help tailor learning based on how students are doing. We also set up processes that identify at-risk students by monitoring attendance, engagement, performance, as well as matching students with support at times of need. And then we implement systematic course reviews that assess the effectiveness of online programs. And so data from those types of assessments we then use to filter back into improvements for the course design process, the student experience in online courses, and changes in instruction and training for faculty. And last, we help coordinate regular monitoring for compliance to ensure that those programs are accessible and meet federal regulation standards and are adaptive to where those changes in standards might go.
Okay.
And then just even thinking and considering all those things that Heidi mentioned, sorry, Sam, to cut you off on that one, but
that's fine.
one of the things that she touched on is the analytics piece of it. We're also not just thinking about it from a classroom perspective, an online learning perspective in each course, but we're really looking at how we retain each of the students. So we work with institutions on their retention strategies for online learners. So when you think about online student retention, learning analytics plays a huge part in the classroom. But what's outside of the classroom? We really want to influence the student experience. So we focus on the areas that really create online student communities. And we look for increased meaningful communications and different touch points. A lot of times those are utilizing CRMs or through student success coaches. And we really work with those departments to come up with a strategy for their own institution that works for them and their students.
Let's pivot a little bit from what we talked about. You kind of hinted at some compliance things, and I know you did a presentation on that. Rachael, can you share some of the strategies and examples from your presentation?
Yeah, I'll even give just a little bit of background. So one of the things that we do as in our academic services units is that we partner with institutions to meet digital accessibility standards. So the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG as it's currently known, is a set of internationally recognized standards developed by the World Wide Web Consortium to ensure that web content is accessible for people with disabilities. So these guidelines really ensure that websites, applications, digital content are all usable by a broader audience, including those with visual, auditory, motor, and cognitive impairment. So when we think about that from a teaching and learning perspective, we're really focusing in on and honing in on the learning management system and partnering with institutions to ensure that their course content is up to that standard. So what a lot of institutions don't realize is that there was an update to the policy, and all of the public entities that are required to meet, all public entities are required to meet WCAG standard 2.1 by April 2026 or April 2027, depending on your school size. So while that may seem like a distance away, it is not. It is very close, and we're really working and trying to get with these institutions now, or colleges and universities, to make sure that they have a plan in place, a strategy in place to meet those guidelines, or to make sure that they have course accessibility standards that are across all of their programs.
Yeah. Heidi, what would be some of the challenges and opportunities that institutions need to look into?
Yeah, so from what we've seen, there are several. For the challenges, we see unequal application of digital accessibility, and sometimes that's driven from a lack of commitment across the institution to make it more accessible for all users inside and out. There's also uneven training that occurs among faculty and staff on how to create content or teach accessibly. And there's also concerns with third-party integrations, making sure that they're also accessible if they're integrated into learning environments. So we always recommend that prioritizing digital accessibility is important for institutions because it improves access for all the users. It also improves retention in online courses, removes barriers to learning for students, and also fosters that inclusive and belonging that you might want in a learning environment, especially one that's remote, because it's incredibly important to students today to feel that connection. It also avoids any kind of litigation or issues with your institutional reputation, which is also critical at a time when students have lots of choices and can go anywhere to take an online program. So a few things that we touched on in our presentation was making sure that you're using accessible multimedia and that you're creating assessments that are accessible to all students, that you design with readability and navigation in mind. And then for online courses specifically, we always work with institutions to implement a high quality assurance review process, a consistent structured course layout so the navigation is not a learning curve for students. And we help them create and use accessible learning materials that support all students. I always frame it as you want the students to come into the course and think it was created for them, not to find a way that they were excluded from it.
That's a good point. What else would you all want to highlight from your presentations?
So I think one of the most exciting things that we were able to present on at Ellucian Live this year was our new artificial intelligence strategic planning suite of services. So we're now partnering with institutions to help them think through how to adopt AI. So legally, ethically, equitably, and purposefully. So we help provide strategic advising on how to create guidelines that direct changes across academics, administration, and within IT. We also provide training and support that educates faculty, students, and staff about that ethical and responsible use and all the capabilities they can get with adoption of AI. And then we also help student services look for opportunities to automate administrative tasks, reducing the time on task, giving them more opportunities to free up for more important work. And we partner with faculty and students to reimagine how teaching and learning can really look in an AI-enhanced world.
Rachael?
For me, I guess one of the biggest takeaways I had from the presentations was really just based on the questions we received. So a lot of times what I'm finding is colleges and universities already know what needs to be done. They just don't necessarily know how to get there. And that's a lot of times why they'll partner with us. So in helping creating strategy or whatever that may be, we really help them, whether it be for online learning, course design and development, accessibility, in creating those strategies and making sure that they have what they need to be successful. And then at the end of the day, what we're really there for is to power our higher education institutions so they can empower student success.
That's great. I really appreciate both of your time, and we'll wrap up there. And thank you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, I'm here with three of my teammates, and I want to start off with brief introductions. Who'd like to go first? And remember, let's keep them short.
I'll go first. Mike Pennella, Senior Learning Experience Designer. I've been with Ellucian about 7 or 8 years, and I have a varied background that includes advertising and marketing.
So,
I can hop in
Suzanne?
next.
Go ahead.
I'm Dr. Kissel. I'm also a Senior Learning Experience Designer with Ellucian. Background is been in education for 20 plus years and really enjoying designing and working in the AI space.
I'm guess I'm next and last. I'm Dr. Suzanne Everest. I've worked with Ellucian for 20 odd years, working principally with instructional design, faculty development, program design, and have been immersed in this AI space since ChatGPT burst on the scenes a couple of years ago. So I'm really excited that AI was featured so heavily at this year's eLive conference, and excited to be talking to y'all about the topic today.
Awesome. That's a great segue. So I'm going to have you answer this first question, Suzanne. So all three of the presentations centered around AI and course design. Why is that topic so important?
I think it's important because the use of AI allows us to design courses quicker and also better in a way that will help us really reach our learners. So before, when we would do a case study or a video, these things would take hours, if not days. And with the expeditious use of AI, we can produce a product, in a matter of 30 minutes or an hour. And then you introduce something like training the AI, like Mike did with Elaine and the AI improv that we're going to talk about shortly. And then you have a means of repeating this, where you don't have to train the AI to know what, for example, is a good learning objective every single time you use it.
Great, thank you. So Tara or Mike, what are the biggest challenges facing higher ed institutions in this new age of AI?
I would say right now, a lot of it's like a toddler who's learning to walk and doesn't quite know what's happening yet. We've got a situation where we have this. It's here. AI's around. We can't avoid it. It's in all parts of our lives, and the higher institutions can't pretend it doesn't exist. but we have to understand why we're doing it, what's behind it. And so one of the big challenges is making sure that we have enough knowledge and preparation around bringing AI to the institutions, bringing it to students, bringing it to faculties, and really building out that knowledge base, that preparation. Because if we don't have it, like a toddler, keep running into walls, keep smacking into that corner of the counter that's been there the whole time, and making sure we're not butting up against things like, financial risk, not butting up against equity issues, bias issues, and trying to build out really that good base before we're running down the road.
Cool. So, Mike, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think the key challenge is students are all over the use of AI, and we need to catch up on the institutional side, um, and be able to deliver the kind of experiences that they know are capable, that AI is capable of delivering. And I think that, and just the fact that you have a faculty at such varying levels. You have people who are, very pioneering spirit, and you have others, and trying to develop policies and governance that speaks to all of those audiences at the same time is a challenge.
Great. So I'm going to keep this next question for you, Mike. Can you describe the AI-driven learning activities showcased during the AI improv session?
Yeah. So what drew us to doing improv beyond thinking that it might be a fun approach is that increasingly we've been viewing AI as like a team member. And rather than demonstrating like, hey, this is what you can use AI for, and let us show you some past things, that we thought if we could do it live, with someone throwing out a course topic and then showing on the spot how we use AI, how we interact, how we refine ideas, how we use it to, generate ideas, that we thought that could be very powerful. And also, we were showcasing AI in a way that I think a lot of people haven't quite seen yet, in terms of giving AI a personality. So, we built our own custom GPT, that was wired for creativity and wired for the specific tasks of trying to create a learning experience. And it talks to us, and we have regular, back and forth type of conversations. So I think it opens some people's eyes to the art of the possible in terms of a lot of the conversation about AI has been all about efficiency, but this idea of how we can truly elevate courses to, this idea of a learning experience, something more conceptual, that this is really the heyday of what you can do in learning experience design because of AI, and you can do it very efficiently.
So how would educators integrate these activities into their learning experiences?
Well, I think part of it is you need to recognize what the skill set is that students want to be able to demonstrate to employers. There are new digital competencies. We've been talking about colleges evolving to teach those digital competencies, but now we have a new set of competencies specifically around AI, and students want to use it. And I think it's our job to, design experiences that demonstrate appropriate uses of AI, so they can kind of understand, what is an appropriate use, and then what is kind of cheating, or what is, shortcutting. So I think we, as educators, have that responsibility to help students be prepared for the type of AI use that they're going to have in the workplace, that we're doing every single day in terms of how we make our work better. So I think that's why that's important.
Yeah. So Terry, you and Suzanne did a presentation on AI, well, kind of a high level topic title, AI and assessments. So what are some of those effective strategies for designing assessments that promote critical thinking and ethical use of AI tools?
No, it's really hard to think about AI, and I like what Mike had said before about competencies. And one of the key things that I think that people need to think about, the first step to really driving AI and assessment, is thinking about what value is AI bringing in here? What value are we doing? And that value can be the competencies. It can be creating a validity, creating a real world scenario. because students are moving forward with AI. And as Mike just pointed out, it's everywhere. Students are all over this, and we have to meet them where they are. And part of that is creating these, utilizing AI to create these real world scenarios, whether it be based on work, whether it be based on you creating a case study as a faculty member to give them a good real world scenario. We are trying to build out and use it as a tool to create validity is a word that we use a lot of times, create really this valid assessment about looking at how the process of learning is happening. And part of that is using that tool of AI, but also looking at the familiarity with AI and understanding that goes back to the competencies and building that out as part of the learning structure. Assessments are a key part of what happens in a classroom for us to understand if a student has reached the knowledge they need to be able to pass through. And AI can be a key tool in brainstorming and building. And these assessments can prepare students for the real world when they walk out and become a nurse, become an accountant. AI is part of those worlds, and we can use it in the classrooms to assess those skills they need for those real world skills.
And
Awesome.
Tara, talking about becoming a nurse, right? It makes me think of all of the NCLEX work that we did with a client where we were preparing students or helping faculty prepare students to take this big exam, and how the use of AI to take this type of final exam would be frowned upon, which has me thinking about the tooling approach that we recently read about and we're talking about with Danny Liu. Can you describe that for folks? Because that's really been influencing how I think about AI and assessment.
Yeah, so what Danny was talking about is that there's two lanes. We have the idea of whether it be an assessment of the learning or for learning. And a lot of times we things like the NCLEX or really tests that need to be monitored. And talking about deciding which tests need to be monitored. NCLEX has to be monitored. It's, how that works out there, but that's of the learning. It is measuring, do they know the facts? Can they come up with the right diagnosis, etc.? And that's a space where AI isn't necessarily needed because it is just saying, do the students have those factual information? Can they show it off? Versus for the learning, when we're looking at these case studies, these real world assessments that are out there, and that AI can be a key partner in those assessments because it is for the learning. It's an access for learning. How are we measuring for learning our assessments there and looking at what we're bringing to the table with the AI helping brainstorm and then giving the answer there, or how the AI can help support these outlines and presentations. These are things out there that are showing the students are in the process of learning, not necessarily this end goal of you wrote a paper.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are some assessments where we will never have AI, where we need to be absolutely sure that the student is doing this on their own, this summative assessments. And then I really liked, kind of thinking about the other assessments as a process.
Mm-hmm. So this is a lot, Suzanne, to bite off for AI, faculty, higher ed. Where should institutions even get started?
Well, I think it's kind of clear in our just conversation so far that institutions, whether they like it or not, have already gotten started. We're seeing upwards of 90% of students saying that they're using AI. Faculty are also using AI on a little bit more uneven. So schools, institutions, whether they like it or not, have already gotten started. The question is how do they kind of harness and control this momentum to roll out AI in a way that's consistent with the institution's mission and vision, and doesn't get them into any trouble with some of the ethical issues that surround AI, such as access and privacy and bias. So the first place I think I would start or continue is making sure level setting the level of familiarity with AI across all of the students and all of the faculty, where it's really difficult to have a conversation across some of these silos if not everybody's speaking the same language and using the same terms in a consistent manner, if not everybody at least has a passing knowledge some of the history and ethical issues and vocabulary with AI. So I would start with those kind of level setting efforts, faculty workshops, student literacy, student courses for AI. And then once everyone has the same kind of level of knowledge about AI, more or less, then you can start to have those important questions where you're meeting, across departments, across disciplines to talk about, this is how we are going to evaluate AI. This is how we're going to adopt it. This is how we're going to implement it and start to get a plan together where you're assessing the priorities to bring the institution along step by step. And yes, I am talking here about governance and about strategy. I'm trying not to use those words because not everybody appreciates them. But if you found yourself wondering, hey, I wonder where Suzanne is going with this, that's exactly where.
Great. So as we start to wrap up, is there anything else that you all would like to highlight from our presentations at Ellucian Live this year?
I just think the fact that there were so many of them relatively, and they were so well attended. In years past, we were lucky on the teaching and learning track if we got, 10, 12 folks in the presentation. And Mike, I think AI improv, how many people did it have?
It was definitely, I think, over 90.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a full house. I mean, it was packed. So I kind of think that that's that's a great indication of the level of interest that folks have in AI, that folks have in teaching and learning. But I also think it gauges kind of where our company is in terms of, really, really, really paying attention to this and really being interested in not in engaging students and in assisting colleges and universities with teaching and learning.
And I can say that from a really great situation we've got where we've talked about eLive and what's happening there. So we had all these sessions and a lot of them focused on AI, and not just our sessions, but across the company, a lot of the sessions focused on AI or AI integration in the products that we have. And I think mixing us with teaching and learning and really looking at the academic side along with what's happening in product and what tools are out there is that we've got a great opportunity to mesh. And these AI tools and product are great, and they're doing great things for students and faculty and advising, but there's a level of needing to understand where we're at the institution and how the adoption is happening. And so that's where what we've talked about really comes in to play at the institution about how do we get this in there? How do we support the faculty, the students with AI? It's coming to your product, it's coming to your tools, but how do we really support them? How do we get them to use it correctly and use it in a way that really supports the institutional goals and going on? And that's where strategic planning, that's where governance, that's where really working through the environment and that culture of AI and culture of learning really comes in that we've talked about kind of throughout all these different situations and presentations.
Awesome.
And Tara, that reminds me of, did you go to I think you did. Did you go to Lauren's session where she talked about the new survey results released? And she made this point that I think last year, something like, and I'm wrong on the numbers, but about 30% of administrators said that they would never use AI. And lo and behold, she found out that, oh, hey, only 10% of folks in 2025 said that they weren't using AI at all, which meant there were a sizable chunk of people that during the course of 2024 went from, I will never touch it, I will never use it, to, hey,
Yeah.
here it is. And that might be a product of their change of mind, or it just might be a product of, you don't know. AI is so integrated into Canvas, into Blackboard, into D2L, into Grammarly, that a lot of us are probably using it without even knowing it, which can be a bit of a problem.
Yeah. So Mike, I'll give you the last word. What would you like to highlight?
Yeah, I would just say that in the end, higher ed is about the learning experience, and just there's a lot of talk and needed talk about how AI affects how we do things. But I think we don't want to underestimate the ability to impact the final product. And I always go back to this idea that, if a student can go home and talk to Einstein on AI about quantum mechanics, right? And then they're going to come in and listening to somebody lecture for 45 minutes, like you can see where the game has to change. And there has never been a more exciting time for, if you can think of it, we can execute it, right? You want to reframe your astronomy course as a spaceship travel through the stars with a interesting, quirky space captain. Great, we can create that easily. It's a really exciting time to be in learning experience design. And Sam, I think you were the one who told me once, was it Seth Godin, who said, if you're worried about getting replaced by AI, you're not doing cool enough stuff. AI might be able to replicate some of the old courses of the past, but that's not the level anymore. We're not trying just to do what was done in the past. I guess that's the difference between when you kick into transformational, right? That you're not just doing something better or more efficiently. You're doing something different. And that is what we're on the cusp of, and that's why it's such an exciting time, I think, for all of us to be working
Absolutely.
in this space.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Well,
Right.
awesome. I thank all of you for joining me on this section of the podcast, and I appreciate your time. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks.
During this last segment of the podcast, I wanted to highlight the other two presentations I did. The first presentation was entitled Support Services for Faculty Development and Teaching and Learning Centers. In this session, I outlined the services we provide institutions related to faculty professional development. Many institutions have teaching and learning centers that are maintained by a faculty member who's facilitating the center as a course release, or maybe it's a single person running the full center full time. In other words, a small team. We come alongside these institutions to assist in filling out the center with seasoned learning experience designers and presenters to cover a wide variety of topics, assist with data collection and reporting, and help to maintain the center's website by updating event information, post articles, and more. The service is subscription-based and allows institutions to ramp up or down what support they need. Lastly, I presented with Anna Gedrich from Mercer University, and we presented on micro-credentials, sparking workforce professional development through interactive learning. During this presentation, we shared how we partnered with Mercer University to develop interactive workforce development courses. We shared examples of different learning experiences, from animated case studies for construction project management to an interactive Medicare/Medicaid helpline with a diverse set of callers. These interactive activities help to encourage adult learner engagement, as well as provide an opportunity for learners to attend in a variety of learning modalities, from fully asynchronous, where the learners are learning on their own, to facilitated asynchronous learning, where the learners have the opportunity to connect with an expert as needed. Well, that brings this first Ellucian Academic Service podcast to a close. We had an excellent time presenting alongside our customers and colleagues at Ellucian Live 2025, and I hope that this podcast gives you a sense of the variety of topics we covered in our presentations. Thank you for joining me and my colleagues, and until next time, have an excellent day.